Hello. Good morning. It's been a while. People are hyped about this. A lot of people are angry about this. Going to clear up some misconceptions, going to talk about the patch, and I'm going to thoroughly read through it because I think a lot of the time people read through it and things are missed, things are misinterpreted. So I want to give my best interpretation of the balance patch. All right, so we have finished and concluded Season 17 of World Arena. Congratulations again to Truewell, NA taking it for once. But let's go through the monster skill balancing pre-notice. So let's go right off the top. Big nerfs. Fair nerfs, to be honest. Kinky, Light Onimusha. The passive, banging head against a brick wall. They are changing the threshold of damage from 25% to 15%, which essentially means that instead of being forced to deal 25% of his HP so that he doesn't counter you, it's now 15%. So damage dealers are now more effective versus Kinky, even though you can't crit him. I think it's a pretty reasonable change. I was only looking for it to come down to 20%, but I'm happy that it's there either way. Kinky's still a very strong unit, very good against a lot of the additional damage-based units or the more like support style CC units. Dark Desert Queen gets a change here. So there are a couple different ways to interpret this, and I'm going to go over the way that I think it's going to be. So the way it works here is it says the Deadly Charm passive silences the target for 1 turn whenever you attack. They are changing that to silences the enemy for 1 turn if you attack the enemy with harmful effects. So I think the way this works is that skill 2, or like your turn 1, I don't think silences anymore. I don't think your turn 1 silences unless you violent proc. I know the skill 2 is multiple hits, so there's actually a chance that the skill 2 multiple hits apply that way, where it's like, hits the defense break, they have harmful effects. Okay, now it silences them. I think that would be reasonable, but it wouldn't really change for the strength of her turn 1. Right? And her turn 1 is super, super strong. So I think that they nerfed her more than they did, but we'll have to see when it actually comes out. Water Ryu or Striker, Water and Light, Tatsumaki, Sepikyaku, Senpu, words. Their skill 2 now has a lower chance to strip buffs. Before with skill ups it was 50%, now it is 20% before skill up, so I think it goes to 40% total per hit. I'm just gonna say outright, I think this is a terrible nerf. The reason I think it's a terrible nerf is because inconsistency is one of the worst nerfs you can make to units. So if you think back to when they nerfed Iris's strip from 100% to 65 instead of lowering the amount of healing that she does every turn. So they made her inconsistent, and nobody used her in RTA. Nobody really used her on offense anymore because she was not reliable. So I think reliability of a unit's debuffs is usually what makes them pretty shit. So, I mean, let's be honest, Water Reuse, Water Striker is still going to be pretty good just because speed lead and the passive, but I think they should have taken a different approach with the nerf. I think they should have touched the passive or possibly touched... Actually, I really just think they should touch the passive more than anything else. They did the same thing with Ken or the Shadow Claw Fire. Skill 2, they reduced the strip chance. Keep in mind, this also does kind of nerf the Light Striker. Light Striker's kind of on the weaker end right now, but they did give him a 7% damage increase to his skill 3, which, I mean, they avoided the 8% damage buff meme, but I actually think that's not bad. His skill 3 wasn't really hitting hard enough, and it was just a little bit short of what it should be. And they also increased the damage of Fire Ken's skill 3 or the Shadow Claw skill 3 by 4%. I think that's okay too, because of the damage plus the branding. They traded off for Fire Ken. They said, okay, you have a lower chance to strip, but you deal a little more damage on skill 3. I think it's an okay trade. It's not the end of the world. Something I'm really looking forward to, I'm not quite sure how it's going to be used yet, but it's interesting to me, is they're changing the Water and Bison. So before it was he would destroy the enemy's max HP by 50% of damage dealt. Now it's going to be after attacking, you destroy the enemy's max HP by 50% of how much they've lost. So if you hit a unit and bring it down to 50% and then you hit it with your Water Bison, it'll destroy 25% of that unit's HP. Now that to me is really cool because his passive suddenly gains all this strength like really quickly, right? You don't need Destroy Runes on him because he has it built into his passive, and it's just a way faster acting Destroy build. So there's a change here to the Fire Ryu. It says eased the attack power condition that increases the chance of landing a glancing hit. So I assume that that's a buff. I assume that that means that they are making it easier to have increased glancing chance based on your attack difference between other units. Some people were giving up crit damage as a whole just so that they could have enough attack to really maximize their glancing chance. The fire or the wind striker, triple combo crush, which is the strip like Daphne skill, now cannot land as a glancing hit. So it's a little bit better, but overall it's still kind of a weaker skill. Not really sure how they feel about that. But I think as a Charlotte user, I don't think I needed this buff. And I'm going to be really honest because Charlotte now buffs 30% attack bar instead of 20%, and she's 105 base speed. I'll take it because I think she's a great unit. She's really good in RTA right now, but I really don't think she needed the buff. This is like when they buff Ethna or they buff Poseidon, and I'm just like, why? Why did you buff these units? They're already good. They don't need more. They really don't need more. Well, yeah. Every time I say they don't need more, all I can think of is the water Ryu. Let's continue. So Chow got a buff. All the Chow lovers, people finally looking out for Chow. Some people were confused if this was a buff or a nerf, and I'll explain why. So essentially what happens is they've changed his passive to be from the end of your turn to the start of your turn. And the reason that some people think this is a nerf is because Chow does damage based on his HP state. However, what they don't understand is that Chow does damage based on his HP state if it's higher. So that's a buff. And the other thing that's relevant is that now he cleanses one debuff, except inability effects, which are stuns, freeze, sleep, etc., at the beginning of your turn. So you can take off an attack break, you can take off a defense break, which means like if you get countered, you take less damage. You can take off a glancing hit. There's a lot of like really good benefits out of this for Chow, and I think that I'm really happy to see this kind of change. Something crazy to me though is Theo passive. They changed Theo passive to be 4 turns. 4 turns. So Theo could actually go ham. We might actually see Theo again, possibly in Siege. I don't think we'll see it too much on Siege defense, but we might see it on Siege offense a little bit more. People might be more willing to use it. Maybe a little more in like regular Guild Wars, but I think at the high end levels, I still don't think we'll be bringing back our Theos. Like we were running it in SW and Chill for a while, and it was okay on offense, but the thing is there are a lot of things that deal well with it. So Fire Monkey King passive change, they basically doubled the resistance gain. So instead of getting 50% resistance over 10 hits, you now get 100%, which I think is weird because you get 15% base resist. So not really sure why they did that. I think they could have made it like, hey, increases your resistance by 7.5% and gain defense or gain life drain or like something that could have been better. I just think it's kind of weak overall. They did touch Karma. I know we've been talking about this a lot on podcast, but I don't feel like it's sufficient with what they changed it to. So it says, before it was basically if a target is suppressed with Karma and you use a skill, you take 50% of your HP, right? Now what they do is if you do that, if you eat the 50% HP loss, your skill's cooldown also goes up by 3 turns. So it does force people to use it less because they don't want to like burn in and then take the cooldowns. But the thing is, it doesn't really stop a lot of units because there's a lot of cleansing out there. Lulu is very strong. You also have, some people still pick really good Violent Friends. But the other thing is like the units that you really want to use this against, like the, like the Okies and stuff like that. Like Oki can just use the transfer to cleanse it off himself from skill 1. Sierra, Chiana, Praha, they just skill 1 and rotate out of it. I don't think it's the right direction. I think the punishment needed to be some sort of guarantee that like they can't use skills. However, I'm willing to give it a chance because I do think that 3 turns of increased cooldown that can also go over the max cooldown time could be really, really good, right? The only thing I wonder though is, will they make suppression apply before cleanse? So like if you suppress a Lulu and they use it on themselves, will they cleanse it first, or will how does that work? I haven't done a lot of testing just because the only Omnyochi I own is Shizuka, but I will be doing some testing with that. Likely with the wind one once the changes go through, just because I want to see how things work. Speaking of that, Geo got a change to her passive. So before it was get 25% attack bar if an enemy with a skill uses a cooldown time, and decreases karma, or karma resets. Now, instead of that, they've changed it so decrease the cooldown time of Karma by 1 turn each for enemy that uses a skill with cooldown. So it doesn't just full reset it, it just gives it 1 turn minus, which is reasonable if under the assumption that they think Karma is going to be a really popular skill. So a couple cool things as well to get changed. Dark Panda now recovers HP from counterattacks, which makes sense because he has a counterattack buff on his skill 2, so I'm not really sure why that didn't exist in the past. Water Jack-o'-lantern, this is kind of cool. I think this is cool. I'm not sure how relevant it is. I think it could be good for... I think it could be really good for 20-star and 4-star, but I'm not quite sure how it will work in other places. Recovers your HP by 10% for every beneficial effect you steal from the enemy. Not bad. Not bad. A little bit of sustain built into your chilling there. Windy got a change, becomes immune against the defense decreasing effect. Potentially another option for Carcano counters, but I'm not really sure because they'll still take a ton of damage. You know, Carcano skill 1 goes through the shield. Water Deosung Fighter got a pretty cool change. So swiftly attacks the enemy 3 times with each attack, inflicting continuous damage for 1 turn. If this lands as a critical hit, it disturbs HP recovery. They added an effect to make it a guaranteed critical hit. So attacks the enemy with an attack that is guaranteed to land as a critical hit 3 times. Each attack inflicts continuous damage and increases your attack bar proportionate to the enemy's lost HP from your attack. So you're going to be getting that second turn faster. Also gives them the potential to run additional damage. Pretty neat. Pretty neat. Effect added for Wind, push through, gets the critical hit. Dark, attack ignores all effects that resist death, which is pretty cool. You can kill Garos with that. You can kill... I think you can kill through Triana passive as well with that. And then the one that really interests me the most is Relentless Strike, Fire and Dark. So Trevor also gets this. Recovers your HP by 30% of the inflicted damage. So potentially you could be running Violent on your Trevors now, or just not needing to run Vampire on it. I still think the Vampire skill 1 is super, super strong, but you know, it's up to you to figure out what works best for your account. They increase the damage for all of the Dhalsims on skill 1, as well as skill 2 for the Water and Dark ones. The Water one got to change his passive, so they added a change. Increases damage by 100% on turns acquired additionally. So now Violent procs basically can gain the extra bonus damage for Water Dhalsim. Or Kyle, if you're using the Poison Masters. I don't know that many people that used him besides Jubagel in that one video, but I know he's pretty okay. He's not a bad unit, but he's not like an incredible unit. Wind Dhalsim, they changed his skill 3 to have stun and then increased damage for dots. Now it does, I believe it's a higher chance to inflict the dots, and the damage increases the same. Oh, no, okay, so the damage increase is different, sorry. The damage increase is based on continuous damage now, granted on the enemy. Before, it was increased damage if they were under an inability effect, so you don't have to stun now to get the bonus damage. Same thing for the Wind one. They just had to rewrite the wording a little bit. Cowgirl changes. Personally, don't think they're relevant at all. Water one gets increased dot chance as increased. Fire, Water, and Dark. Increase attack bar by 10% each when you land a critical hit. Is now changed to inflicts continuous damage for 2 turns. I don't really know where you're ever going to use the Cowgirls unless they decide to 2A them right now. Cannon Girls, Fire, Water, and Light, Wild Shot. Used to just be 8 random attacks, 50% chance of defense break. Now it's attacks all enemies several times, decreases their defense for 2 turns with a 50% each chance, and attacks up to 8 times as the number of enemies is less. So that's kind of like, feels kind of like a nerf, if you ask me. But, oh, actually, no, this is not a nerf. I misread this. So this attacks all enemies equal amounts of times. I'm not sure if the damage output overall is different. We'd have to see what the multipliers, if they change the multipliers at all. But that actually does seem like a pretty decent buff, because now you just like deal consistent damage across the board because you hit everyone multiple times, right? Instead of before it was just like random shots. If there's one boss like in Necro, then you just hit the one boss. But this is the thing I wanted to talk about. A lot of people are very concerned about this. Tatu. They're changing Tatu's skill 3. So before, Tatu's skill 3 explodes dots, right? It blows up dots based on the number of turns. They're changing it now so that it uses 1 turn of the dots and does not blow them up entirely. So you can't blow up 3-turn dots anymore. I want to let you know that in your dungeon teams, this actually won't really make a difference. It might slow your runs down by a couple seconds, maybe just a couple seconds. But for the most part, what's going to happen is you're going to put up your 5 dots of 2 turns. You're going to blow up 1 turn of it with your Tatu and deal 50%, and then the boss is going to move and die instantly. So I wouldn't worry too much about it. I know a lot of people were freaking out, like, oh my god, all my farming teams are broken. No, you're good. You're good. Don't worry. Theoretically, it should still be fine. Maybe you lose like 1 second off your best record, but kind of whatever. Cool awakening effects. I don't know how relevant this is overall. I don't think it's actually super significant. Laura now has speed awakening, so Laura is now 120 base speed. Stripper with no utility on the strip though. Light Phoenix now gets 25% accuracy instead of resist, which is always a good change. And then they decided to add base speed to all the Phoenixes. So all of the Phoenixes now have 5 more base speed, which means Teshar goes to 115 instead, or 114 instead of 109. And we'll see all the other ones at 98. Not quite sure if we'll still see Eludia. Potentially like Eludia Escher comps, but I think that that's not super significant. Not quite sure. Not really sure on that one. Overall, the skill errors not super important or relevant. I think this one's funny. Improve the AI so the monster will not use hidden name while they're in the hidden name. So I guess if you use like Carcano and like an I don't know, like an Elenoa or something, like they automatically go back into hidden name again, which is kind of dumb. But overall, I think this patch is pretty okay. It's not incredible. They did some cool buffs. I think Chow got a cool buff. I think that the changes to the Yojis could potentially be good and hopefully are. I think Dark Panda got a nice buff, which makes him a little bit better. I'm interested to see if people use the Neostone Fighters and or the Dulcims now. I don't think we'll see any of them in RTA in like regular arena, like regular RTA season. But the thing that concerns me the most is I need to know how this Nephthys passive works, because if Nephthys passive works the way I think it is, it's a pretty big nerf. But if it works the way where you hit them once, you debuff them with defense break, and then you silence them the next turn, then it's really not that bad. It basically just means she can't silence on skill 1, which is still a big nerf. Don't get me wrong, it is still a big nerf, but I need to know which one it is so I can decide what I hate more. Nephthys is one of my least favorite units in the game, just because I feel like she has incredible strength due to the fact that she's consistent. Like, she's extremely consistent due to her passive, and you can also build her in a way that, like, she just gets a lot of other free stats. So you can either max resist or you can build her on crit damage, right? Because you don't need any accuracy. So it does concern me. I do think that nerfing her is okay. If you disagree with me, let me know. If there's anything about the patch that you're confused about, or anything about the patch that you don't think is going to be good, or you think I said was trash and you think it's really good, let me know in the comments. I'd be happy to like discuss it. I wanna get your guys' opinions on it. I think this balance patch is pretty underwhelming. I think there could have been a lot more relevancy, but I'm always hopeful that things are going in the right direction. You're going in the right direction. So if you like the video, make sure to click the button, subscribe. I'll try to get all the podcasts out soon. I'm just waiting on one more file, and then I'm going to release all of them in order, like throughout a week. But most recent one was Comp2SB, Thompson. Had a lot of good discussions talking about this balance patch, essentially. But yeah, let me know what you guys think.